Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a video kind of explaining my experience growing roses indoors, what's worked for me, mistakes that I've made, things that I've learned, so that hopefully you have more success at the beginning when you're trying to grow roses indoors for the first time. So I would say that one of the first things you want to consider when growing roses indoors is the size of the rose. This is a example of a Let Freedom ring rose that got taller than me. And what happens when the roses get taller, and if you're growing these under grow lights, you'll have to move the grow lights up. And eventually the light gets diluted and the plant at the base isn't too happy. The leaves start to die out, and that's because the light's too diluted and it's not getting the required light. So that's really something to consider when selecting your rose. So another thing you want to consider when you're growing roses indoors is the type of soil you use. You want something that's fast draining. I noticed these cactus blends do really well. They don't retain a lot of moisture. And that's good because you're indoors, you don't have the sun to help you evaporate a lot of moisture, and you don't want your plants to just sit in wet, boggy soil. So if you can see here, when I water my plants, you can see that the water almost immediately drains down. It's not just sitting and pooling at the top of the soil. So that's really a good sign and a good test to see if you have soil that's draining fast enough. The other thing you want to make sure you do is feed your roses. Because your roses are likely being grown in containers, the only real nutrients they're getting are the nutrients that you're providing to them, so you want to keep them on a regular feeding schedule. I use two different types of fertilizer. The first is a slow release fertilizer, and this is just pellets that you sprinkle at the base of the plant. And I use this very sparingly, maybe 3 times a year, and about a third of the dose that's recommended on the package. The second type is this water-soluble fertilizer. And I use this much more frequently, but again, I cut the dose down in half. The reason is you're growing the plants in pots, and the nutrients will likely stay in the pots. They're not being washed away as if you were growing them in the yard. So you can get away with using a lot less fertilizer, and your roses should still be happy and healthy and produce lots of blooms. One of the problems you may encounter when growing roses is black spot or powdery mildew, and these are really common problems with roses. I got this on Amazon. It's called Green Cure. It's just a powder that you mix with water and spray your leaves down with, and it's done a really good job for me. So I'm not sure if you guys experience these issues, but if you do, you might want to give this product a try. I tried other products, but this has been the one that works the best for me. Next thing you want to do is select your pot. You want to select a pot that's the appropriate size for your plant, but also you want to choose between plastic pots or terracotta pots. And I prefer the terracotta pots like these because I noticed that they don't hold the moisture in as much, and the soil tends to dry out a lot faster. And that kind of helps out with root rot or other kind of moisture-based problems that can happen when your soil is too wet for too long. Aside from the water, the lights are probably the most important thing to consider when growing roses. Your roses are sun-loving plants, so they want more than 6 hours of sun. My lights run about 8.5 hours. I really like these Tautronic grow lights. This is a 12-watt bulb, and this is the one I started with. These are the newer models. This is the 36-watt bulb, and this is the green bulb, which is also 36 watt, but it's an older model. I prefer the gold over the green. It doesn't hurt my eyes as much. So that's another thing you want to consider. You don't want to put these in a space that you're going to be in constantly, because these lights are pretty intense. You also want to have an appropriate setup. You want to make sure that the lights that you're using can support and sustain the size of rose that you're trying to grow. This is a picture of my setup when I first started, and you can see that I selected roses that were way too big for the size of the lights that I was trying to use. You want to make sure the light is hitting the entire rose and not just one spot on the plant. It's also a good idea to have something where you can adjust the height of your lights, so that as your roses grow taller, you can move your lights up, and if you prune them back, you can move your lights down, and that will keep the lights a comfortable distance from your rose, and that will keep them happy and healthy. So I hope this video has helped you in some way or encouraged you to try growing roses indoors. If you're like me and you don't have a yard but you really love roses, this is something you can still have in your life, and they're just really hardy plants, forgiving, easy to grow, and very rewarding to grow. So I hope you all give it a try, and if you do, I wish you all the success in the world. Until next time, take care. Bye.